I honestly can't believe that Hayward is going to be a Charlotte Hornet next year. The news broke about an hour ago, the time that I'm doing this. I was waiting to see if Boston was going to get a sign and trade in return because the Hornets had to clear up cap, but they ended up just cutting Nick Batum, so here I am. This is bad. Really bad if you're the Celtics. This is now the third max player over the past 3 seasons that you've lost to free agency. You lost Kyrie, you lost Horford, and now you lose Hayward. Not only did you lose Hayward, you got him for nothing when you might have had an offer on the table. Nobody really knows what was happening with Indiana. We got reports that Miles Turner and Doug McDermott were on the table, but the Celtics wanted more. But then again, who knows if that's true? I'd like to think that that the offer really wasn't there. You would hope that Danny Ainge wouldn't have just turned down Miles Turner to lose them for nothing. But then again, I don't know. It really depends on Hayward and his agency as to what happened. If the Charlotte offer was always there, and that there was no chance that Hayward was signing with the Celtics or Pacers, then whatever, nothing you could do. But if the Celtics had the trade there and just waited too long, then that's a problem. You don't just replace a guy who averaged 17.5 points, over 6 rebounds, and 4 assists like that. Obviously, Hayward was making a lot of money, but when you're trying to be competitive, you need to spend money on good players. And maybe the $30 million isn't worth it for Hayward, but I would argue it's better than losing him for nothing. As for the Hornets, I mean, that's a lot of money for a guy that's struggled with injuries and is not in his prime anymore. 4 years, $120 million. The Charlotte Hornets love giving out these big contracts, and most of the times, they don't turn out very well. Like Bismack Biyombo, Nicholas Batum. They paid Terry Rozier $19 million. I mean, that's not a terrible contract, but it's still probably an overpay. And once again, Hayward, 4 years, $120. I mean, there was no way any other team was matching that. Not the Knicks, not the Pacers, and not the Celtics. I like to think that the Celtics and Pacers had agreed on a trade, whether it was for Miles Turner or Doug McDermott, or maybe they got more in return, I'm not sure. But Hayward just didn't want to sign because he knew he was getting a bigger offer from the Hornets. They had come out and said that the Pacers were his preferred destination, but I mean, maybe that was his preferred destination, but he'd rather take the money. So he's willing to sacrifice the organization and the spot he plays in for a max deal. Because I don't imagine a scenario where we just let Hayward walk because of it. Because, we don't get Oladipo, so we just don't want anybody. That wouldn't make much sense. Can the Hornets be good next year with Hayward? I mean, they can be decent. I mean, they drafted LaMelo, number 3 overall. Who knows how good he'll be. And now you add Hayward along to Devontae. You kind of have a long gem at point guard with Rozier. I don't know who they're going to start there. And there's still a lot of question marks on that team, but I mean, maybe they can fight for a playoff spot. I don't know. If you roll out a starting lineup of, let's say, LaMelo, I'm guessing they'd start Devontae, Hayward, PJ Washington, and then the center as Cody Zeller. I mean, it's not great, but hey, you'll win some more games, I guess. I don't know if this was the best move for the Hornets, but if you're trying to get better, then it's not terrible. As for the Celtics, they still have their mid-level now, which they could pick somebody up. I've heard Paul Millsap, maybe DeMarcus Cousins, maybe a guy like, you take a risk on someone like Harry Giles. I mean, those guys aren't Hayward, but you need to at least get something. You can't just lose Hayward and not replace him with anything. Every single team in the Eastern Conference has gotten better this offseason, except the Celtics. Obviously, the Nets are going to get KD back. The Bucks acquired Drew Holiday. The Sixers got off Al Horford. They got more shooting with Seth Curry. The Miami Heat just continue to get older and get better. Obviously, the Celtics guys are going to get older, like Tatum and Brown, but there's a lot of question marks, especially with the chemistry now. Now that you reportedly tried to trade Kemba to like every single team in the league. I mean, now is Kemba gonna want to leave now? I don't know. I mean, once again, you've lost 3 of your max free agent signings in the past 2 seasons. Now, I don't know if that's entirely the Celtics' fault, because there was some weird scenarios. Kyrie, I mean, the whole Kyrie situation, there was no shot you were re-signing Kyrie, I think. Al Horford wanted to stay, but, I mean, the Sixers paid him 4 years, $109 million for a guy in his mid-30s. Like, you're not beating that. And same thing for Hayward, so is it something behind the scenes with the Celtics that are making people not want to stay? I kind of doubt it, but, I mean, I think you have to ask the question. Now, obviously, the Celtics can still be really good without Gordon Hayward. They did it in the bubble and in the playoffs without Hayward. I mean, you could argue that if they had a healthy Hayward, maybe they make it farther, but we won't be sure. So they definitely can still be good. I assume Marcus Smart just enters the starting lineup for him, unless you pick up another player, unless you trust Grant Williams or Nesmith that much. But I doubt it. I assume you roll with Marcus Smart. Does this, how many teams, does this really affect the Celtics that much? I don't know if now all of a sudden the Sixers are better than them, or teams like that, or maybe the Raptors are better than them now. I doubt it. But Hayward is still a very valuable piece that I don't know if you can replace. It's still kind of unclear as to why he wanted out. I mean, maybe it's because of the injuries, and he just wanted a new situation. Maybe it was just because he felt like he wasn't as involved in the offense as he should be, that when he signed the year, he was promised to be the focal point, but then all of a sudden Kemba comes, and Tatum is better, and Brown is better, and now Hayward's kind of the 4th option. It also could be that this team looks nothing like the team Hayward signed to. Hayward originally signed here to be with Isaiah Thomas coming off that MVP-type season, and in that same offseason, we traded for Kyrie, Jaylen Brown took a jump, and we drafted Jason Tatum, and all of a sudden the entire team was different. So maybe Hayward just feels like this isn't where he signed up to be, and he left. The Celtics, it's kind of disappointing that they got nothing out of the Hornets for him. I mean, you expected after Hayward signed there that you would at least get something like a Terry Rozier, or maybe a bad contract and picks, or like a Miles Bridges with Cody Zeller or something like that. But they got nothing. The Hornets ended up just stretching Nicholas Batum's contract, which is kind of a questionable move for them. I mean, Nick Batum was an expiring deal, and now you still have to pay him $9 million for the next 3 years. Granted, it's not $27 million, but you just added more money on your books for a longer period of time. So, yeah, I don't know. How much does this change the landscape of the East? I mean, probably not that much. The Celtics will still be good. The Hornets will still be okay. But it does hurt that the Celtics continue to get worse as other teams get better, and you couldn't turn Hayward into Miles Turner, which seemed like a guarantee. So, yeah.